All right, welcome to a new edition of the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast, the PGA edition. This is your host, Bryan. I'm here with my co-host, Peter Jennings, a.k.a. CSU Ram, and Colin, Davy. We are here talking about the Valspar Championship. Just had an interesting World Golf Classic Mexico Championship. Henrik Stenson, I'm sorry if you were on that train and had to deal with the withdrawal on Thursday, but definitely excited to get back to a new tournament this week. Colin, how's it going, man?
You know, I'm actually excited for that angle. I think GI track forecasting is the new trend in predicting tournament outcomes. And maybe if you took the Europeans' digestive tracts are not as resilient as the Americans, kind of used to the crap that we eat, then like you could have a hidden angle there. Sorry for all Stenson owners. I know he was fade, but I didn't think he was that bad of a fade. Pete, how much Stenson do you have this week?
Last week I had all the Stenson, so.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, I had them in the Thunderdome and all that. So I only had 5 of 22 of the pressure putts, so that was the only saving grace. But, we had, in our little contest, I had all the Stensons, so. It looked like it was going to be a great start. Birdied the first 2 holes, was walking in his putts. I mean, the course set up well for him, and I really feel if he wouldn't have withdrew, I mean, he really could have thrived at this course. But
100%, yeah. I've also, in addition, brief shout out to Pete over here for his Sloan panel this weekend. I was there in attendance. Pete killed it, as we all thought he would. And golf had some pretty good representation at Sloan. They had a full-fledged panel. There were a couple of research papers out of there. It was a productive weekend for all things golf-related. And without giving away too much, there may be some surprises for this podcast coming down the road. So we'll just leave it at that for now.
Awesome. Yeah, that is definitely keeping people on the edge there. Let's quickly touch just on last week. Obviously, Stenson is the big news, but there are some positive stories. Of note, Dustin Johnson was the most expensive guy. He became the world number 1. This course didn't seem to fit him exactly, but I mean, we're just seeing a guy just in awesome form. He's not in this field, but I mean, what are your thoughts on just sort of watching people play last week, Pete? I mean, Justin Thomas is a guy that we've been high on. He played really well. Then if you just want to brag about your boy Peters, this would be the spot to do it here.
Yeah, I mean, DJ looks like he might be able to hold on to number 1 for a long time. Pretty incredible how well he's playing and finally putting it all together. Justin Thomas, the most remarkable thing to me was they asked him how many hole-in-ones he's had, and he said 19 or 20, or he said, I don't know, 19 or 20 or something like that. So that's 23 years old and has like 10x the amount of hole-in-ones I'll have in my life max. I mean, I'm hoping I get one at some point. But, and then Thomas Peters, that was the only thing that went really right for me. I was all in on him in every single contest, cash, tournaments, everywhere. And he did play really well, didn't salvage something. He got all 4 of his rounds under 70. So really bullish on Peters long term, and it's paid big dividends so far in DFS. So we'll see if we can get some other guys. Rahm is another one that I was on early. Colin was doubting a little bit until he got more data, but I think Colin's finally come around on Rahm. So
100%.
That was good. And, I mean, the Stenson thing, I mean, I'm still trying to figure out what's right with ownership. I don't feel too bad. I mean, Colin, if you knew he's 45% in the Thunderdome, but the Thunderdome pays out 5 of 23 spots, is he an auto fade for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There's no qualifier.
Even with paying out 5 of 23. What if it paid out like 40%?
Yeah, because I think in a no cut, I think there's no clear cut. I mean, it was an accuracy course, but just in general in golf, I refuse to believe that it's NBA levels of anybody is a must play, and so I really feel like that anybody over X% is an auto fade. In tournaments,
well, obviously not cash games.
Cash.
Not in the head-to-head or 50-50.
No, not at all. So
it's getting closer to a cash game format is what I'm saying.
Right. So it's a flatter payout structure than the dog leg, for example. It gets a little bit trickier there. So all right, so maybe there's no such thing as an auto fade in like a top 5 out of 23 pay. Would I still probably yes, I think in a no cut event.
I think when you see 45%,
you just pick anybody. What was Rory owned in the Thunderdome?
Oh, he was owned. Rory's always owned. It was Matsuyama 0% owned. Dustin Johnson, like 3 people took him or something like that.
Okay.
But I mean, he was clearly the right choice.
Yeah.
Not even results oriented. I mean, Matsuyama is probably the real choice at 0%. But
0%. Like, yes, Matsuyama was the real choice there, hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, definitely check out our PGA ownership dashboard. It's free on the site, and we update it with ownership really right after lock. I mean, it's up, within minutes after lock. And you can see where guys are owned at different buy-in levels, and you can try to see which guys are sharper plays than others. And a lot of guys that I think we were on last week, we were talking about Peters and Rahm played well. Justin Thomas is a guy we've been interested in, and even guys like, we were debating Peters versus like JD Holmes versus, some of these other cheap value guys last week, and they all ended up playing pretty well. So overall, other than the Stinson thing, I think we were pretty solid. One guy I am interested in, just from a volatility sake before we get into this week's tournament, Bill Haas, is a guy that we had talked about. He ended up being the third highest volatility play, or no, he was number 1 in volatility, 3 highest GPP grade. Colin, was there something that maybe we missed on Haas, just the consistency of recent play there?
I don't know. He was kind of a surprise. Actually, I thought Rahm was the far more surprising hire in terms of just like differential in ownership. I had him as way a lower owned, but like Haas definitely had some late movement there in terms of ownership tracking upward. I struggle to figure out where that came from. Maybe it's tough to say what drives ownership. Like there could be some late breaking like Twitter touts or recommendations and stuff that isn't captured particularly well. I don't think it was that bad a miss, but yeah, it was volatile. But like, yeah, he was kind of a head scratcher. You're going to get those with ownership from time to time. It's definitely something I go back and look at, like where did that come from? But yeah, I'm kind of in the dark there, just as much as you.
Cool. Yeah, definitely something to monitor every week is this ownership dashboard and see where your ownerships line up with the field. So on that note, let's get into this week's Valspar Championship. It's where the PGA Tour is at this week, which is in Tampa, Florida. It's at the Innisbrook Resort and Golf Club. It's at the Copperhead course, which is sort of famous for that the snake pit, which is the last 3 holes at the end. It's pretty tough. The course does play really tough. Not many guys ended up finishing below par last year. Schwartzel won it last year. Spieth was the year before, and a lot of I think accuracy guys here. So Colin, I'll kick back to you, but is that sort of what you're seeing? It seems like a lot of accuracy guys have done well here in the past. So I'm sort of guessing that's what your course is going to lead to.
Yeah, definitely rates out as an accuracy course. I'd put it as low to medium fit. It's more the bombers get penalized than accuracy guys get a boost. That's also, I was reading something from a 15th Club out there today. They have rated this course as a really high, less than driver course more than anything, which kind of corresponds with accuracy. And the other thing they say is important is long iron play around the greens, because there's a lot of greenside bunkers there more than any other course. So scrambling will be up there for sure. But yeah, it plays like, I think long irons and around the greens bunker play are probably going to be most important. Pete, does that jive with what you know about the course?
Yeah, definitely accuracy course, less than driver. You want guys who can hit long irons or other clubs well off the tee and even on approaches, because there's some tricky shots like that. And I do buy the scrambling. The guys who have played well here, I mean, it's literally all your accuracy guys: Luke Donald, Jim Furyk, Duffner. I mean, it's just, you go down the list. I mean, it's all Kuchar's played well here. It's basically guys that are just straight accuracy. So I think that's the big angle for sure. And I can see the course fit. You just don't want to be taking guys who are really good with driver in their hand, because that is not something that you need. And a lot of those guys aren't as accurate. And if that's a weapon that they're leveraging, it's going to be a knockdown for them. So I completely agree with what you said, Colin.
So, Pete, we do have scrambling as an available filter on our model. That's not something that I give weight to very often. Is this something that's going to be part of your model this week?
Yeah, I have it as 5 points right now, just in my Fantasy Pros model, and I'll definitely have that out. Maybe I'll bump a little recent scrambling, but I have long-term scrambling is 5 points right now in the model.
And what are your thoughts on, guys that maybe haven't played well, but sort of rate well for like a course history? Like Gary Woodland, I'm pretty sure has pretty strong scrambling marks. That's maybe a guy, even though he hasn't played super, super well at this course. No, I think he maybe has some solid fit. It's like mediocre. Yeah. I'm just curious, like, is there maybe another guy like
Steve Stricker is a guy that I'm looking at that I think could be really interesting. He's been a really good scrambler and putter. The thing that kills him now is just driving distance. Anytime where it's bombers, he's been pretty bad. So these guys rating really well for me relatively this week. And that's something that I think is interesting. Woodland, I definitely don't mind, but he definitely thrives with the driving distance and isn't as accurate. So that's the one thing that makes me a little nervous about him relative to other guys. But I think it's more of a driving accuracy thing, and I am looking at scrambling a little bit more than I usually am.
Yeah, that's fair. So accuracy, if that's the case, Colin, and we'll sort of dive right into our player discussion and talk about the top guys, and then the chalk and a lot of the values that we think are going to be popular. And then we'll talk about some GPP pivots as well. But let's start with Stinson, just because he's probably the guy that we need to discuss after the withdrawing on Thursday last week. If it's an accuracy course, Stinson is probably the most accurate guy in the entire PGA Tour. So, Colin, are you scared off at all, or you want to embrace maybe his lower ownership? And what do you do when Stinson and some of these top guys like Stinson versus Justin Thomas, who played really well, but Stinson, has the accuracy edge there? What are your thoughts on these top guys here?
So I don't think Stinson's ownership will actually be that low. I think what do
you mean, Colin? You don't think it's going to be low? You think it's going to be the highest in the field, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think that, So I'm just saying, I do think Stenson will be the highest owned. I get why you might think that people are going to be scared off of him because there's a big, ugly withdrawal there. I think Golf DFS is aware enough to know that he withdrew because of a stomach virus and not a nagging injury. And so it's kind of a fluke one-off, I think. People will just look at accuracy course. He's the best player in the field by far, not even the most expensive. I think people will flock to him. Enough where so I would fade him in the dog leg, for example, just on ownership alone. I think Justin Thomas is not as good a fit. I think his totals are inflated by that hole-in-one that he had over the weekend. But just from ownership, I think he's a better value to ownership kind of pivot from Stenson. But I think Stenson will be the highest owned in the field.
So he was obviously really high last week. Where would you put him sort of relative to this week, Pete? Do you think he'll be lower owned than last week? I mean, I agree that people, PGA DFS people are probably largely smart. But I mean, there are going to be people who, not even just the GI bug issue, is just being pissed at Stinson for ruining all their lineups,
Yeah, no, that'll bring it down a little bit, but he's still the clear-cut number one guy. I agree with Colin. I don't think Justin Thomas is going to rate as well here. So I think people might look to him. I think what's interesting is, we talked about Kuchar back, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and I was like, he's way too cheap at 7,300, and now we have him at 10-2. Granted, he does have great course history and fits this place really well, but I'll be interested to see where his ownership comes in. Then you have some other names that, are somewhat popular that we'll see how heavily owned they end up being. But for the most part, it's going to be a lot of guys that we haven't seen be more heavily owned. I think guys like Charles Howell, 9,400 will end up being pretty heavily owned, and that's a pretty high price tag relative to what we saw. Some of the guys we talked about before that might end up being higher owned that are surprising in terms of their name are like Ollie Schneider-Jans, maybe Graham DeLette ends up being heavily owned here, which would be very surprising because he normally is a guy you can get at 1-2%. It's just a tricky week because it's just not as star-studded of a field relative to other ones.
Yeah, and I think that sort of is going to make what building lineups is going to make it quite a bit of a challenge. Is the top end talent is not quite there this week, and they sort of priced up the field. I mean, like JT and Hendrik Stenson are 11-9, 11-7, but then the guys right below them, and Kuchar is 10-2. There's not the guys sort of worth paying up for like there are usual this week. So let's talk a little bit of the chalk, because I think that They priced up a bunch of these guys, but they didn't sort of price up a lot of the value guys. So you're sort of a weird dynamic where there's a lot of value in like the even top 6 range, low 7K range, but there's sort of not as many high-end guys where you want to go stars and scrubs. So let's talk the value guys, and then we'll sort of talk about what that does for lineup building, because it's been tough for me to build a lot of lineups because there's actually too much value. So a lot of guys that stand out here. We talked about Stricker in this range, but like guys like Lucas Glover, we talked about Duffner and Adam Hadwin seem to be like really, really clear value plays. Colin, where do you stand on sort of those 3 or 4 guys? You can even throw like Martin Laird. It just seems like there's so much value. Like those are all sort of cash game viable plays, and there's so many of them right within a couple $100 of each other.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Frankly, I was going to get upset if you weren't going to mention Martin Laird, who's my new go-to guy there. Yeah, I agree that there's kind of a glut of value at the lower tiers here. And that's not an inconsistent thing we see in other sports in DFS, right? Any given slate, think of NBA, for example, right? How many nights have you seen where like 7 players get injured and you have a glut of backups starting and there's like value across the board, right?
Yeah, Monday night.
Sometimes that coincides with like there's not enough top end places to put them, right? So if you kind of think of that as like a waterbed effect, then like, everybody reaches their equilibrium where maybe like ownership is a little more diluted in the value and like everybody trends towards the same top end guys because there's not a lot of places to put them. Whatever that dynamic is, however you're used to evaluating it in your other sports, there's no reason it shouldn't apply to golf. Sometimes you're top end heavy, like when we saw DJ 40% owned earlier in this year when he won. Sometimes you're value heavy, and like the ownership will reflect that, and everybody's can move in different directions. So it's just a matter of anticipating how that dynamic plays out.
Yeah, it really is an interesting dynamic because if you're going to build a lot of lineups, and something I've already started to do, and you're really high on some of these value guys, you're going to just naturally end up with a lot of Justin Thomas and Henrik Stenson just to fill out your lineup. So, Pete, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? It seems like stars and scrubs is going to just be what everyone does with Stenson and all these value guys. Because, I mean, there's legitimate like 5 or 6 guys you could use in cash games between like 6'9" and 7'4".
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think Stenson's still going to be really heavily owned. I think a lot of these top guys will be. And the interesting thing to me is just, how heavily owned is someone like Matt Kuchar going to be, Daniel Berger, Bill Haas, Charles Howell. Like, I think a lot of those guys are really, really going to be interesting this week. I mean, I think people will talk themselves into Patrick Reed a good bit as well. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I agree, there's a ton of value at the cheap range.
Yeah, so let's sort of just talk about, maybe projected ownership and some GPP pivots that we want to take. So like Glover, Duffner, that sort of range here, Colin. You can throw in Laird and Stricker, like this high 6, low 7K range with all of the value. Who do you think is going to be sort of the chalk from that group? And like where are the GPP stands that you want to take? You throw like Jim Furyk in there. Seems like there's just a lot of guys that are particularly interesting. Stuart Sink is maybe another guy that you're interested in.
So in the low value range, like I still see like Pete's mainstay, like Russell Knox, especially in an accuracy course. People are slow to get off of him. I think like in an accuracy course, people are going to be willing to fire one more time. I think Glover will be up there. I don't know if it's the value range you're talking about, but I think Duffner, if you want to put him in value range, will be the chalk of the whole tournament, considering his course history. I think all those guys are kind of middling so far. If I had to pick one guy to fly a little bit under the radar there, it would probably, Hadwin has a decent chance, but most people are onto him for sure. If you want to go my favorite, still decent value, but no one ever talks about him, it's Bryan Harmon for sure. It's decent course history. He's put up a couple monster results here that had massive leverage when he did, like something like 3% owned. I think he's my clearest pivot for value. The other guys that I like as far as super low ownership in that range are probably Bud Cauley, who has a boom or bust feel to him, but he was almost guaranteed to not crack 5% ownership. And back in my wheelhouse, I'm so happy that he's here and it's going to be such low ownership, is Ches Reavie. Really good.
He won't be as low owned as you think, though, Colin.
Accuracy guy. Give me a line.
I bet in the dog leg, I bet he's over like 3%.
Okay, like that's if you can.
He might end up being like 5 though, because dude, I'm telling you, some of these guys who are pretty darn sharp are gonna just go heavy on him. I would take under 6. I think that's good leverage for Reavie. Yeah, if I wasn't in Hawaii, I'd be going all in.
I think he's decent leverage here, especially since I think so many people are going to be on Duffner, probably Hadwin, probably Weird.
So is your play on Reavie just an ownership play? I mean, he hasn't been playing well lately. Not like GIR is not very good, you know.
Oh yeah, like it's a pure ownership, and like I think Furyk and Reavie are rating pretty similar for me, almost dead on. The difference is everybody knows who Furyk is and will flock to that accuracy angle. But I think like Reavie has secretly just as good course history and is able to fly under the radar a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do with guys like these that like haven't been playing well lately, but have just crushed the course? I mean, Furyk is a good example. He's been a little up and down, but it has elite course history, I would say here.
I mean, that depends on how you measure course history, and that's why it's so important to gauge it relative to how they were playing overall at the time.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I'm not as high on Furyk relatively. Luke Donald's the most interesting one to me. I'm curious your opinion on him, Colin.
Fade. He's going to be high owned. Not going to.
What do you think his EV is though? Like, don't think about ownership. Talk to me about just his EV relative to his price.
Yeah, that's also like I think I can list like at least like a dozen, if not 2 dozen people like priced like at his like level that I think are going to be doing better than him.
Luke Donald or Russell Knox? Who do you like more?
Oh my God, this is so close.
And dude, you're Russell Knox. I hate to admit, but I'm just wrong.
Like I think Knox is a little bit better. I don't think it's that much better though. They're very.
God, he is sucked. So why did you think he was going to be bad going into like the Phoenix? Like his results were so good, and then all of a sudden he just falls off a cliff. How did you know that was coming?
I just I mean, you never, know per se, but like, why was I bearish on him? Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm just looking through his game log. He wins the Travelers in August, and then he doesn't miss a cut forever. He gets like his worst finish from mid-October through the end of the year, into the beginning of the year, was 11th. I'm sorry, at a 17th and tournament champion.
He was so hot, yeah.
So hot, and then you're like, I'm off him. Like you're a voodoo guy. And all of a sudden, he misses the cut at Phoenix, misses it at Honda, plays like a total chump at Mexico. I mean, he just
Colin curse.
I think people just underrate that gap between basically November and January. I think there's a lot of results that just get like folded out that, or at least like time weighted down.
Oh, what results were we missing? That they just weren't DraftKings contests?
Well, no, TOC. I don't know if TOC was in there, but like it's just some more like going back to if you're looking at Phoenix or something. Like I don't know, I've never been bullish on Knox like from the beginning. So it's kind of like if that's your like, either he's like putting in against like weaker fields, or maybe some of those numbers you think like, oh, it's a 17, it's a 23. It's against lower fields, a lower field size. Like I don't know, like and like somewhere in between there, it's just I don't know. Like it's,
you're right, man. I mean, so far you're looking very, very right. And he's I mean, I feel great about Peters and Rahm, and feel like I've been on the ball with those, but Knox is a definitive miss at this point. So.
Yeah, I think you're right on with Peters. I think it's lower data for sure, but like so far, I like everything I see so far. I think I agree with that by and large.
Peters is going to just be a monster for DraftKings. I mean, he hits the ball a freaking ton. So anytime you have a course that's even a remote bomber's course, I mean, he is just an absolute smash.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's like if Nicholas Colsaerts actually lived up to his promise. That's great.
Yeah, they're a good reference there, Colin.
Russell's my favorite.
Euro, yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where DK puts Peters' price. Getting back to this week's field, though, I mean, so we have like Luke Donald, Russell Knox. These are guys in the little high 7K range. Do you think they're going to be higher owned than some of the lower end, like Duffner and Glover and guys like those, Colin?
Honestly, yeah, I think you can make a case where like they're both going to be really close. I think people are slow to get off Knox. They're high on Donald, probably undeservedly so. I don't think
so. Go down to those guys is the play.
Oh no, I think they're still bad plays because I think they're
Okay.
still not gaining a whole lot of leverage. I think they're still going to be higher owned, but just like low expectation.
Yeah.
I think Duffner is the most interesting case in terms of like what is ownership going to be and what's his value. I think he is probably the best pound for pound value play in the whole course, but gosh, is he going to be heavily owned? I'd probably put him like I'd be comfortable with top 4 predicting top owned. Pete, you want to take action on that either side?
I think that's pretty. Which side do you want?
No, I think I can't.
I feel like that's the line.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't have an opinion on that one.
Yeah, I think for that reason, like if there's any time you fade people, it's in the value spots. So just on ownership alone.
So a lot of high ownership guys here in this range. So let's try to find like maybe where is a good middle ground, like just to get guys that we like, but also with some lower ownership. So we do have guys like Glover and Duffner. Glover and like Hadwin, the high 6K range. We have a guy like Duffner. We have Donald and those guys in the higher 7K range. So it's maybe splitting the difference with like Steve Stricker, Martin Laird range. Pete, is that like maybe a middle ground where you split the difference between those higher owned guys on either side, and maybe that's where you find the ownership discount, or you think they'll be high as well?
Yeah, I think they'll be somewhat high. That's kind of what you have to figure out this week is just where you want to go. I think I love the Reeby call for leverage and ownership, but yeah, we'll see. Some of these guys will clearly go lower owned than what we think. One guy who I want to own at some point in time because he's a hilarious follow on Twitter and just totally for entertainment is Grayson Murray, but this is the worst course to own him. He'll be really low owned, but he's a total bomber.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crappy that it sets up this way. Outside of that, in terms of like guys who might be like low owned that I think could be interesting, and especially the price, one guy that I think Colin was on for a little bit was Chris Kirk. I don't think he's going to be.
I don't think I was ever on him, actually, but I basically agree with that now anyway.
I thought you were on him at some point. Maybe I'm wrong. You're more a Kisner guy, I guess. You're a Kisner guy?
Yeah, Kisner for sure.
Maybe I'm confusing those. I don't think you're on Kirk. My bad. It's just tough. A lot of these guys are just not the right fit. Someone I've seen touted a lot that I will not touch is Graham McDowell. Do you like him at all?
I'm always bearish on him. No, I never.
I'm super bearish on Graham McDowell this week. I've heard him touted a bunch, and it's like if he's going to be heavily owned, like I'll feel great about fading him.
No, that's dead money.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Never pick McDowell. Holy crap! I'll never pick him.
That's a weird one. In the PGA written breakdown that one of our writers, Kelly McCann, does, he had a good nugget here. Lee McCoy, he doesn't even really have that much data in player models, so people are going to skip over him. But he placed 4th last year as an amateur, and apparently he grew up playing Innisbrook and claims, Pete, you'll appreciate this, and I want to hear your thoughts. He claims he has played the Copperhead over 1,000 times. So, Pete, there's your local narrative, a guy who just knows the course is in and out, and it's a tough course. Probably not a good golfer relative to his 7.3 price tag, but a guy that just knows the course that well. Is there any angle there?
Yeah, I love that stuff. I'm all about that angle of guys who have played and like grown up somewhere, just been on a course forever. I think there's just so many little subtle things that you can learn, and obviously it's more valuable at other courses, in certain spots. But I definitely like that angle, and I'm liking the angle of people who are from the area, and I certainly think that there's merit to that.
Yes, I love the story of that angle, but just like I'd be lying if I said it'd ever be enough to push me on Lee McCoy. Like I look at that.
No, I'm not going to play him. I just like the story.
No, I agree, but it's tempting. Don't get me wrong, and I do love that, but it's just like no, there's nothing in my soul that could push me in that direction.
Yeah, no, that's really fair. A couple, just another maybe lineup construction question before we move into just, we talk some players, make our picks, and then we can take a couple prop bets here. So, Colin, like, what's the play for you? Like, to build a lineup, like good GPP lineup? I think in cash games, we have a lot of guys that we like. I like guys with course history. So I think making a cash lineup is going to be a lot easier than making even a nice GPP lineup with pivots. So, I mean, what's the play? Is it just simply getting away from stars and scrubs is going to be a unique lineup for you?
I don't like the thing is like I don't mind if you go stars and scrubs necessarily because there's no other place to put your like savings essentially, right?
Just go the right scrubs.
Yeah, I think like you start with like you pick Thomas over Stenson because they have similar odds to win, but Stenson's ownership will be at least 1.5x higher. So there's your differentiation there.
Sure.
And then it depends on like I think the open question is how linear leverage is as far as like is downgrading from a 10 to a 5 the same as a 5 to a 1 if you go on a top heavy payout. That remains to be seen. So I think you could go ahead and pick your Bud Collies and your even like a Robert Garrigus if you want some boomer bust in course history. That like give you some that you're gonna stay below 5%. So I still don't mind going stars and scrubs and maybe fading some of that cash game value. Even just if you pick your second guy as like maybe the low 9s, maybe the high 10s, something like I think a Kuchar or Berger makes a ton of sense for other places to park your money. Maybe Patrick Reed because scrambling doesn't just show up in most course fits, but from we know greenside bunkers, he'll have a fighting chance more than most people. So I see him being a sneaky good play. So basically it starts with fading Stenson and probably Charles Howell. Those are my big fades. Duffner probably too in a GPP.
Interesting. Yeah, Duffner, I think is the guy that you have to look for a fade. Pete, what are your thoughts on the lineup construction process? I mean, it's Justin Thomas over Hendrik Stenson's a nice pivot there, but just from overall, a lot of people are going to go maybe Stenson and then 3 or 4 guys in that range that we were talking about, high 6, low 7. So I mean, he's going a guy like Patrick Reed or Woodland or Kevin Na, Graham DeLette, just inserting one of those guys that people are going to be off. Is that going to be the GPP play to build a sort of a more unique lineup?
I think, I think that can make sense. I also love the angle of just building kind of like a high tier balance guy. So load up on Bill Haas and Charles Howell and Daniel Berger. I definitely think that route makes sense, and then kind of mix and match. I think that you can fade, all the guys above 10K and make some pretty cool lineups that can be a little bit more leveraged. The issue is some of those guys are going to be pretty heavily owned too. So just a matter of figuring out where you're going to have leverage in your lineup because it is going to be tough. I mean, there's going to be – I feel like a lot of the high equity plays are all going to be owned. So it's a challenge this week for sure, but definitely interested to see how it plays out.
Colin, what are your thoughts on this is the last question before we pick our winners and hit a couple props? What are your thoughts on just leaving salary on the table with so much value? Is that a viable strategy?
Would you leave more salary this week for how much value there is, compared to others? That's a really good question. I don't know what your guys' floor is for all right, I will never leave more than X amount of money on the table. For me, I think if you leave more than 1,000 on the table, it's probably too much. I don't know that value abundance is ever a reason to leave money on the table. I think payout structure is far more a bigger driver of do you leave money on the table to suppress your ownership? When we play the Millionaire Maker in a month, I think that's where you really start to leave more money on the table. So maybe an extra 100 or 200, but I really don't start to think about leaving money on the table until you basically get to a winner take all type of thing and you just need zero ownership.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is interesting. Like you could always do the process of like just build a lineup and not look at prices, but I mean that's always tough to do. But like, I mean, Pete, what are your thoughts on leaving money on table this week versus other weeks? I mean, like it sort of makes sense. Like if you think that like a guy like Laird is underpriced by like $600, Glover's underpriced by like $600, like all of a sudden you're like $1,000 in price compared to like where maybe you would have been if DraftKings had been a little bit tighter. But like you're not losing that much in like EV just based on where you have the guys relative to other lineups.
Yeah, I mean, we're just getting into stuff that I'm still trying to figure out. That's the hard part, and I think Colin's really starting to hit on it in a good way. This is a challenging field for it. With the majors, I think we will be able to figure some of this stuff out because some of the guys are just going to be so heavily owned, and there's so many other good players. It's the biggest challenge for me is just figuring out these fields that we just don't have as much confidence in terms of like the depth of the field and like there's not as many high value plays. And I mean, I just don't think there are that many guys I look at and I'm like, oh, I expect 2 to 4% ownership or something like that. And they're going to be good plays. I mean, there's guys that I don't mind, like Hudson Swafford, who I really like, but it's awful course fit. So it's just a weird week. I mean, I'm struggling a lot in that regard for tournaments. I definitely like this week a lot for cash and high stakes stuff, but yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it for the tournaments and the game theory side of things. So I do think that stuff's super important, and every week that goes by, I buy into it more and more. I just need to figure out who those are.
Yeah, definitely something we'll keep on talking about. But let's talk some winners here. And just because it's so weird with Justin Thomas and Henrik Stenson being sort of the clear two top dogs, let's change it up a little bit since we have three of us picking winners. We'll go our snake style, but you cannot pick JT and Stenson, so it has to be below them. If they win, we'll just not have a winner. And then the next guy has to be below 8K instead of below 9K.
All right, that's a good adjustment.
Who took Dustin Johnson last week, by the way?
One of us did. I don't know. I think it might have been me. That's not a slow roll. I swear I don't remember.
No, I have no idea.
Yeah, I thought I did because I just went highest expectation. I thought I really do not remember.
We do have a first pick, right?
Yeah, I thought. Yeah,
I guarantee you, DJ.
Yeah. All right. So I'll go third this week. That's fine.
We have quite the run of picking like the top guys have just won all lately. So like the
only person who's won that's not an elite player so far this year is Hudson Swafford. He's like the only guy out of the top 15 that's won outside of Rahm, who is I think Rahm is like right there. It's like a 7.
Yeah, I have him as like that second tier. Like, yeah, I agree.
Like, who do you think? Let's just have a real quick conversation. How many golfers do you think are better than Rahm right now? You have Day, Spieth, McIlroy, Dustin Johnson as like the clear top 4 right now, right?
Matsuyama.
I think he's I think Matsuyama's close. I think Stenson.
I think he's really close with Matsuyama and Stenson.
I think Stenson's better.
Yeah, I think Stenson's probably better too. I'm just biased because he fucked me last week.
What about Adam Scott? like that sort of range?
Yeah.
I would take Rahm over Scott.
Yeah, that's sort of where it becomes a toss-up, which I think your point, Pete, is that says a lot about Rahm.
Oh yeah, no.
100%. Like, yeah.
So how would you rank some of these young guys? Rahm, JT,
that's the other guy.
Peters.
Justin Thomas is right there.
Yeah, Peters. I mean, how would you rank these guys long term?
Long term, got 5-year forecast, 2-year forecast. I don't know. I don't even want to claim to touch that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like out of the guys, like I think Spieth's the best. Your guy under 25. Then it's probably JT, and then it's Rahm. I mean, JT and Rahm are really close, in my opinion. I think I'd probably take Rahm over JT. I know Colin does for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, here's my hot. Actually, I went back to the kind of the overall rankings. Here's my hot take right now. I would debatably take Rahm over Jason Day at 50-50.
Just right now because of Jason Day's struggles lately?
Yes.
Yeah.
Long term, who knows? I don't know if Jason Day will get back to form, but Pete, would you take Rahm over Jason Day on the mythical neutral course? We're both
right now.
Yeah.
Nah, man. Closer to that. I mean, I still take Day. Give me. If it really mattered today, I think he can get his buy. But Day just has all this stuff that he's. I mean, when he's changing his swing after being the number one player in the world because his body. I mean, there's a lot of bad signs.
Yeah, I agree. It's like that's why it's a hot take.
He also ran so hot last year with his putter. Day did so insanely hot. So
I think he has a lot more to fall back on. But I'm just saying, like that's why I said right now, not necessarily long term, but like I think John Rahm is really good right now.
I think maybe a better question is, would you take Rahm, Martin Laird, or Harris English, Colin?
Oh, just what you're just my happy place is just like I'm in sensory overload. Speaking of Martin Laird, he's a guy who's actually in the field. Let's get our picks in because I want to take I have so many props for Laird ready to go. All right,
I like it.
Since I went first last time, so who wants to go first?
Pete, go for it.
What price point did to pick under again? Sorry.
So just under Stinson and Thomas for your first guy, and then after that, it's going to be below 8K.
Okay. So I'll take Berger.
Berger, I like it. I'm going to take Patrick Reed.
Oh, such a good one. I'll go Haas.
Haas over Kuchar, huh?
Yeah.
And Powell. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, here's where I load up. I love it for the spot. Martin Laird.
I like that. Good call. I'm going to go – ooh, there's a lot of guys right here. I'm going to go Russell Knox. The chalk.
I hate that pick.
The chalk. You got to fade him in GPPs, but you got to take him in this format. Pete, where are you going on your last pick? Pete is thinking, stewing. This is
I know this is a tough spot. I'm in the tank hard.
No, it's not a tough spot.
No, I know who Colin's going to take. I think here.
No, I already took mine. Remember, I snake drafted. I already took Laird.
Yeah, you took Laird, and I took Knox.
I'll take Wesley Bryan.
Wesley Bryan. Oh, interesting.
It's way out of there. Everybody faded.
Oh, no. I'll take Jason Duffner.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Right.
I didn't even realize. Yeah, sorry, I had this all screwed up with the pricing. Yeah, Duffner's 7.9. That works, right?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's not even close. Duffner, but then I think it is Bryan next. Maybe Horschel.
Yeah, no, that was my sneaky favorite. Yeah, I agree.
What about Schwartzel? I mean, this is a guy that we haven't talked about. He won last year, and
we also didn't talk about Bubba Watson for both reasons. They're terrible right now.
I hope Schwartzel can find some sort of form heal so I can take him in the Masters.
Yeah, that is a good thing.
Also, if you want to learn a golf swing, just emulate Charles Schwartzel. The guy has the GOAT golf swing.
I will take you up on that, actually. All right, let's go props. I'm itching for this one. Martin Laird versus anybody 78 and under.
Sure. Just to give you, I like Laird. He's a CSU guy. I can't go against. I'll take Bryan. I'll take Knox just for the hell of it.
I want my Scotsman showdown, Laird versus Knox.
Yeah, I'll take Knox as well.
I'm really disappointed that you actually have Laird ties because I would love that Scotsman battle otherwise. Because then
I like Laird.
It'd be holy war. All right.
I'll take Berger versus anyone under Stenson.
So basically, Berger or Kuchar.
Yeah, no, and I'll take Berger and someone under 8K, and you can have any two golfers under Stenson if you want to do that too.
Yeah, so we could go Kuchar and Reed.
Sure, I'll give away equity here.
Yeah, I'll go Kuchar and Reed for sure.
All right, you take that one. I don't need it.
I'll take Berger and Duffner.
Yeah, no, see. I mean, this is where it's interesting. There's so many guys that are cheap that you're not losing that much equity probably, and not as much as like a normal week where you take guys at that price range. I think. Cool. What else would you want to do, Colin? What else you got? You said you had a lot loaded here.
I'm gonna take the guy we haven't talked about yet, Kevin Na, and who has great course history here, and Adam Hadwin versus What am I at? Just give me that salary total.
Okay.
So is it, so 14, so 95, 14.5, at non-Hadwin versus any two 14.5 and under.
Okay.
Just a straight up. I'll give you 15,000 total.
Okay. So you could go that's interesting. So you could go like Glover and Duffner. Is that right? Does that make
Yeah.
Is that close? Yeah, I'll go Glover and Duffner against you.
Yeah, if it's close, I'll just give that to you. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Glover and Duffner. Done.
All right.
This is interesting. Let's go. I will take. I'll take you, Steve Stricker against Laird straight up, Colin.
Done.
I think those are sort of a
coin.
I think those are coin flip.
Yes, I agree.
So just for the sake of it, seeing some love on Martin Flores as a true punt play. Just sort of we could do a proper knot, but Colin, any love for him?
As someone, he already got burned in him. All right, what's Flores' price?
6.5.
Ooh, let me do the ultimate insult. Well, I guess no, I'll take Hawley over Flores.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, Pete, you got anything loaded up here? Do you want to do Justin Thomas over Stinson, Pete?
No, definitely not.
Trying to get you on your young guy train here.
Yeah, I mean, I like Bill Haas quite a bit this week.
It seems like we're on the same page about a lot of these guys, which is making props sort of tough. Is that we're all in agreement? We need to disagree.
Yeah, and this is the week where everything's going to go exactly opposite of how we feel. You finally feel like you have a lot of conviction on it, and this just goes the exact opposite. I hope not, but yeah, it does seem like there's a very specific, like the data points in some very strong direction. So I do like that. I also like Charles Howell quite a bit too. But
yeah, those two are really close for me. I just can't no, there's not enough to disagree on this week.
You're talking about Haas and Howell?
Yeah.
You think they're close? Interesting.
I think they're very close. Yes.
Yeah. Where does Woodland fit in that for you? I think I prefer Woodland over Haas.
I'll take Haas over Woodland.
I'll take Haas over Woodland.
Yeah, but this is interesting because I think this is what is getting into the dynamic, which is why I'm glad that we're doing these props, because it just makes you think about how close two guys really are. I think Woodland and Haas are pretty darn close, but Haas is probably going to have higher ownership. Would you say, Colin?
Yeah. Oh, I think so for sure.
Yeah. So that makes it interesting. So it's almost do this when you're building lineups and you have GPP pivots. Just ask yourself how close it is and take the guy that you think to be low owned.
All right, let's do a spread bet. Give me Kevin Na +5 DraftKings points over Woodland.
+5 over Woodland. Yeah, that's close. I'll give that to you. That's fine.
All right.
That's fair.
I would have done 4 if you asked, but all right.
That's fair.
I got my 5.
Yeah. Hey, all right. Any last ones that we're looking at here? I think we could wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I think we're good and loaded.
Awesome.
We got a tracker last week too, and then we got our
Sounds good. All right. Well, we will end it there. Thank you guys for listening as always to the podcast on the Valspar. We hopefully we'll have some better luck with the injuries this week. It will be interesting though. It seems like we're all on the same page about a lot of these guys, a lot of value guys. So definitely good luck this week, and we'll talk to you guys next week.